Hello everyone. So, I'm back again with my video, and today we are going to cover NCRT Class 6, Chapter 2, and that is from hunting, gathering to growing food. So, this is the lesson outline, and what all we are going to cover in this chapter in this particular video is that who were the earliest people and why they were moving from place to place. All right, and also how do we get to know about these people, that whether they were moving from one place to another, and if they were moving from one place to another, then how they were deciding that this is my place to live in. All right. We are also going to cover about that what they, when and how they found out about the fire, and how the environment has been changing over the period of time. Also, how there was a beginning of farming and herding took place apart from hunting. And are also going to study about the first farmers and the herders. And there is a place called Mehergarh. We are going to study about that as well. Moving on. So the very first thing, do you know that the trains were first used about 150 years ago, and that people began to use bus a decade later only? So, if you are thinking, as in today's world, we move from one place to another and we have a whole lot of facility in terms of transport, and we can easily move from one place to another. All right. So, what was the facility available for the people who were living back then in 1,000 years ago? So, how could they travel? Because obviously there was no train or there was no bus were there. So the question is, did they spend their entire lives wherever they were born? So we will get to know about this thing in our later video. So the very first reason why hunter and gatherers were moving from place to place. If they were moving from place to place, obviously there must be a reason why they were moving from one place to another. All right. So the very first reason is that they were moving from one place to another in search of food. Because obviously, just consider this scenario: if you are living in your home and if you are continuously using um, your ration within your home, obviously you are going to be uh, in the scarcity of those resources, because ultimately it is going to be finished up and you have to go to the supermarket or the market to buy those things. And in the similar manner, the earliest of people used to move from one place to another, because living in one place for the longest of time will lead to the scarcity of food over there. So that is why they had to move from to the other place in search of food. Also, since animals were already, always on the move, they used to move from one place to another. So in order to follow the animals also, they used to move from one place to another, because we know that the earliest of peoples were hunters, they were gatherers, they were travelers. All right. So in search of animals as well, they used to do it. Again, seasonal changes. In the first chapter also, we have studied that people were moving because of any kind of natural disaster that used to take took place, and to escape that natural disaster they used to move from one place to another. Again, that is why when there were seasonal changes, maybe in a particular location some kind of food was available to them in a particular season, and in different season different kind of a food was available in different locations, so they have to switch from one place to another. Again, in search of water as well, water is a necessity, a part of life, and most of the people, they were living along the banks of the river, but many were also living in the outskirts. So they have to, in search of water, they have to move from one place to another. So these are the reasons that they were moving from one place to another. Then next, how do we know about these people? So there are evidences. From those evidence we can know that these people were moving one place from one place to another, and that they existed. And how do we know that? So there are evidences of the thing that they made and used. So wherever they moved, they made something over there, okay, and they used that. For example, they used stone, they used wood, and they used bones. All right. So why? What was the usage of stone for them? So they were using stone to cut the meat and the bone, because we know that there were hunters who used to hunt animals and eat animals. Okay, so in order to cut the flesh or the meat and the bone, they used the stone, and they also scrape bark from the tree. Okay, because there were gatherers who used to collect fruits and roots, so, in order to scrape the bark from the tree, they used stone. And also, they used to hide animal skins, chop fruits and roots and everything. Then also to make spears and arrows for hunting, and to make their weapons sharp, they used to use the stone. All right, and and they used stone as an arrow, or I mean, they used to attach the stone to the arrows and the spears, and then they used it as a weapon. And also, they used stone to chop wood. Okay, and by chopping the wood, they would make firewood. All right. Now, what was the usage of wood? So they were using wood to make hut and tools, because our question was in the lesson outline we saw that if they were moving from one place to another, so obviously they have to find a certain place to live. Okay, not only place where they were living, in what kind of a setup. Today we have our own home. There is a building in which we are living. In the same manner, they used wood to make huts and tools. All right. So here is a picture. You can see this particular stone is being used for stitching clothes made out of skin. Okay, so they used to hunt animals and they used to scrape out the animal skin and they used to make the clothes. And in order to stitch the cloth, they used to use this stone. All right, and here is another kind of a tool that they used for digging the grounds and to collect the edible roots. All right, so different kinds of stones they are using for different purposes. Moving on, so how they chose a place to live in. I mean, how they decided that this is my place to live in. So here is a particular map. You have to observe this map very carefully. All right, and just go through the places that are available. These are some of the important archaeological sites that are mentioned in this map. All right. People try to find places to live where good quality stone was available, because all the things that they are doing or they were doing were with the tools like stones and woods, like that. So wherever the better quality stone was available, they used to live there. Today also, if we see, if we are to make a building, so obviously we will collect all the good kind of a material to make our building, so that it is going to last longer. Okay. So in the similar manner, they also used to do this. So in this particular map, if you see all the red triangles, these are the sites of evidence of hunter and gatherers. All these red triangles, these are the areas where hunter and gatherers used to live. Okay. Now we have also have the evidences of rock paintings, which tell us that these people lived over here and they lived in caves as well. So two things, they used to make huts for them, and they also lived in caves. How do we get to know that they lived in caves? Because we find the rock painting in the cave. Okay, so the many of the caves in which these early people lived have paintings on the wall, and some of the best examples are from Madhya Pradesh and southern Uttar Pradesh. So these paintings, we can see that in these paintings there are wild animals drawn with great accuracy and skill. All right. So these are their places where they used to live. Moving on, uh, when I mean, how did they get to know about the fire? So in the earlier slide, we were talking about a cave, and there is a cave called Kurnool Cave, and in the Kurnool cave, and the traces of ashes have been found. And this trace of ash suggests that the people have been familiar with the use of fire. This is one of the suggestion from the scholars that people were knowing about the fire. That is why there has been the ashes of, I mean, traces of ashes were there. Now, what people must be using the fire for? So, as a source of light, obviously in the dark, if they are going to for hunting or gathering. So they need a light. So as a source of light, also since they used to hunt the animal and eat animal, so in order to roast the meat, um, uh, so they used fire for that purpose, and also they used fire to scare away wild animals because they are living in the forest or the jungles or in the setup that is very could be dangerous for their lives. So in order to scare away the animals, they use the fire for. So your task is to find the Kurnool cave that I just talked about from the previous map. There is Kurnool cave. So find out, locate that, and comment in the section below where you can locate that. And one food for thought that I'm leaving you up to is, why do we use fire today? Just I mentioned that the earliest of people used fire for these many purposes. So, so your question is, why are we using fire today? Okay. Then here are some of the tools or the stone ages that the scholars have divided for their understanding. They have differentiated into this Paleolithic age, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. So Paleo means old and Lithos means stone. So this is particularly about the earliest period of time or the oldest period of the time. Okay. Uh, the date frame or the time frame is 2 million years ago to 12,000. So this was the time frame when Paleolithic age existed. And this, since this age is very vast, so the scholars divided it into lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic for better understanding and for better um, covering the dates and understanding the situation. And since this earliest of the period is the most vast in the year, so it covers 99% of human history is covered in this particular age. Now, Mesolithic age. Mesolithic age means meso means middle and lithos means stone. Okay, so middle stone. So the particular date frame of this age is 12,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago. And in this era, the stone tools that were found were very tiny in nature, and that is why this was termed as microlith. Micro in itself means small or tiny, and lithos means we know stone. Okay, so why tiny stone were used? So they were used to make tools like saws and sickles. So you have to remember all of that. That what they are using these stones and or the tools for. So they are using for the making saws and sickles. Now comes the Neolithic age. Neo itself means new, something new, and the time frame is 10 from the 10,000 years ago and so on. So this is the last stage of the Stone Age. Moving ahead. So over the period of time, environment changed, and today we know that scientists are talking about global warming and melting of the ice caps and everything, and our and we are, you know, there is more of a warmer condition. So 12,000 years ago, this climate change took place, and we shifted from towards or towards more warmer conditions. Okay, and this was for the good and for the bad. I mean, for the good, it happened that since it shifted towards warmer condition, it led to development of grass. Okay, and when there was a development of grass, it increased the number of animals that survived on the grass. We have sheep, we have goats, cattle who survived on grass. All right, and hunters now followed these animals by knowing their eating patterns and breeding, since we know that they used to move from one place to another following the animals. So these animals who used to feed themselves on the grasses, they have a particular eating habit. So these hunters, they decoded their eating habits, and in which season they used to breed, they knew all about that, and thus they followed them accordingly. Okay, so this made people to think about herding and rearing these animals as well. So sometimes, and at a later point of time, they thought that instead of hunting them down, it is also better to herd them or maybe rear them. Okay, in the previous chapter also we have known that people have been rearing the animals as well. Okay, and fishing also became very important back then. Now moving on, so how, I mean, the farming culture came into existence because we know the earliest of peoples are hunters and gatherers. So when did all this farming thing started? So the grain-bearing grasses like wheat, barley, and rice, they grew naturally in different parts of the subcontinent. Okay, they were growing naturally, and these grains were collected uh, by the people as food, and they learned where they were growing and when they will be ripening, because we know that crops were being grown and they were being found in the particular part of the subcontinent. So what they did is they collected the food when it ripened and when it grew, and thus slowly and gradually what happened is that they started to grow these grains. They used to sow the grains and then they used to get the crops. And thus slowly and gradually they became the farmers. Okay. Then when the herding took place, okay, like the rearing of the sheep, so people attracted and tamed animals by leaving food for them near their shelter. So wherever they used to live, what they used to in, because they what they do did is they used to attract the animals by placing some food. Today also we do sometimes whenever some animal is roaming around, for example, dog and cat, we put for them a milk or certain things so that they will eat. Okay, so earliest of people also wherever their shelter was, they used to leave the food outside so that they can be attracted and they can and further they can tame them. Okay. And most of the animals, since they ate grass, for example, sheep, goat, cattle, and pigs, people protected these animals from the attack of wild animals. And since they started protecting them and they started taming them, this must have led to them becoming the herders. I mean, this is a particular suggestion that is being that made. This is how they must have become a farmer or they must have become a herder. Okay. So your task again is to find that which was the first animal that was tamed by earliest of the people. So let me know in the comment section below. A new way of life. So when did a new way of life started and it all came into picture? So seed planting and staying in the same place for long time, look after them till they ripen. So what they did is we just saw that how did they become farmers. So they used to sow the grain and the wheat, barley, and these crops they used to grow and ripen, and they kept the knowledge of when of everything about the seeds or the grain. So they planted seeds. And if they are planting seeds and they have to get the crop, so they have to stay in that location. They cannot move from one place to another like earlier they are doing that. They are just frequently switching from one place to another. So since they are planting the seeds, so they have to stay in the same location till the seed is ripened. So the grains were further stored for both food and seed. All right. And And when the crops got ripened, so where they were storing all of that. So there was a particular storage that came into existence, such as they made clay pots like these, the baskets like these, and sometimes they also dug the pits in the ground. They excavated the ground and they stored their grains over there or the crops there. Animals reared provided a store, and the animals that they were taming and they were rearing, these animals also were of benefit to them. For example, the animals were providing them with milk and meat. Alright, so a new way of life. Why we are calling a new way of life? Because earlier they are moving from one place to another, and here a kind of we see a kind of a sedentary lifestyle is coming into picture. Alright, so the first farmers and herders. So here, all these blue squares that you are seeing in the map are the sites where archaeologists have found evidence of early farmers and herders. Okay, and these red ones I have already told that these are the sites where hunter and gatherers lived, and these blue ones are the ones where the evidence of early farmers and herders could be found. And scientists they did what they studied the plants and animal bones to find out whether these sites were settlements of farmers and herders or not. Okay, I mean, if we are claiming that these sites were the sites of farmers and herders, so how what proof do we have? What evidence do we have? So we have evidence um, in terms of plants and animal bones. Okay, scientists have studied the plant and animal bones, and from this they have found that these were the settlements of farmer and herders. And scientists also found burnt grains, which indicated that crops were grown in different parts. So people also, saw the seed and the grain, and they also burnt grain. So obviously, if they're burning the grain, so crops were being grown in different parts of the sub. Okay, so these are the places of where the first of the farmers and herders existed, the blue ones. So you have to remember all of that. Now, coming towards slowly, we can see that they are moving towards a settled life or a sedentary life. Now, they are no more moving from one place to another. So, if they are staying in a one particular location, so obviously they have to bear the repercussions of the changing seasons as well. So, in order to get the shelter in cold weather, what they used to do, there have been the evidence or the traces of houses and pit houses have been found out. Okay, for example, Borgaon is one of the location in present day Kashmir. You can find out the traces of huts and houses and pit houses over there, particularly pit houses. Okay, and evidence of indoor and outdoor cooking have also been found. So these all things are suggesting that people are moving towards a settled life. They are remaining in the particular location. They are not moving. Okay, and they are doing everything possible. They are coming up with all the facility in that particular location. Okay, so there have been evidences of indoor and outdoor cooking. So this suggested that the cooking here have been taking place both inside the hut and outside the hut. And new stone tools have been also found. Tools, gradually, you would see in the Paleolithic time, the kind of tools that are there, they are not much polished. Okay, and but over the period of time, if you come to Neolithic age, stone tools are becoming more polished, and they are very fine. They have fine cutting edge, and mortars and pestles are also being used for grinding the grains and other plant produce. Okay, so Paleolithic types of stone tools were also used. Okay, remember that some tools were also made of bone. Not only stone is being used, we have already studied that bones have been also in use. Evidence of varieties of earthen pots have been also found. People used to decorate them, and they used to use these pots for storing their things like grains and the crops and everything. And these usage of pots, and these pots were also used for cooking food, especially the grains like rice, wheat, and lentils. So you have to remember that all crops are available. We have sown wheat, we have seen barley, we have seen rice, lentils. So you have to remember that what all things were available in terms of food. Evidence of weaved clothes using different material like cotton. So earlier people are using the animal skin for clothing themselves. Later on we are seeing that cotton came into existence and people are using cotton to weave their clothes. So the question is, did things change everywhere and all at once? Did it happen like that? No. It didn't happen that everything changed very sudden and all of a sudden. In many areas, men and women still continue to hunt and gather food, and elsewhere, people adopted farming and herding slowly. So it happened slowly and gradually over several thousand years. Besides, in some cases, people try to combine these activities. So sometimes people were doing farming and herding, and they were also doing the hunting. So it was a combination of the activities, and they used to do different things during different seasons. Okay, so things did not change everywhere all right. Now talking about this particular place, Mehergarh. So Mehergarh is located in a fertile plain near Bolan Pass, and mm, it passes into the Iran region as well. So this was a place where people learned to grow barley and wheat. Okay, and they reared sheep and goats for the very first time. So Mehergarh is the very first region where people learned to grow what? Barley and wheat, and they reared sheep and goats for the very first time. Now, bones of wild animals like deer and pigs have been found in this particular location, and also bones of sheep and goats were also found. So wild animal bones have been also found, and the reared animals' bones have also been found, like sheep and goats. And what all other things have been found? If you can see back in the background of the picture, here is a square or rectangular shaped house, and it has four compartments. So these kind of houses have been also found in in this location of Mehergarh. Okay, and this was used for storage. This particular thing, this particular house with four compartments that you can see. Okay, we have also evidence of burial sites in Mehergarh. People used to bury that period of time. So there you may wonder that people were either burying or they were cremating. So in Mehergarh region, people found to be burying their dead ones, and they believed in some form of a life after death. And therefore, in one instance, it was found in the burial site that a goat was buried with the dead person, which meant that his food they can eat in the next life, maybe. Okay, so this was their belief system. And here is one of the buried thing is over here in the background, you can see. Now, moving on, domestication. What domestication is? So, domestication is basically a process in which people grow plants and they look after animals. And very often, this plant and animals that are tended by people, they become different from wild plant and animals. We're not talking about wild plant and animal; they are something different because people select plant and animal for domestication. Okay, for example, they selected those plants and animals that are not prone to disease. They are also selecting plants that yielded large size grain and have stronger stalks, and a plant that is capable of bearing the weight of the ripe grain. And seeds from selected plants were preserved, and they were sown so that it can be ensured that new plants and the seeds that will grow will have the same quality. Okay, in today's generation also we kind of mix the things, the genes of one best quality of a plant with that of the other, and we create a mutated plant or the grain or the crop. In the similar manner also they are also doing the same thing. They are domesticating, they are choosing the best of the qualities of all the things, and then they are doing and they are sowing the seeds so that they get the same quality or the best of the quality. And amongst animals, uh, those that were relatively gentle were selected for breeding, okay, not the wild ones. As a result, gradually what happened is domesticated animals and plants became different from the wild animals, okay. And for example, the teeth and horns here in the picture, if you can see the teeth and horns of wild animals were usually much larger than those of the domesticated ones. So, for their own ease of convenience and for their own ease of usage, they did that. So, domestication was a very gradual process, and it took place gradually in many parts of the world. And it began about 12,000 years ago. And virtually all the plants and animal produce that we use as a food today is actually a result of domestication only, because there were wild plants, there were wild animals, but since the earliest of people, they chose very carefully and the qualities that they want in their crops or in their animals. That is why what we see today is it is like that. It is because of that. All right. So, some of the earliest plants that were domesticated were wheat and barley. And the earliest of animals that were domesticated were sheep and goat. Okay. So, elsewhere, if we can see, other than talking about, other than India, if we can find a cave painting, we have already studied about one of the caves like Kurnool, okay, and now there is a finding here. You can see in the picture there is a painting, and this painting, cave painting, is found in France. Okay, do you know France? Where is France to find that in the atlas? So this site was discovered by four school children more than 100 years ago. So four school children actually found this place. Okay, and this painting was made around between 20,000 and 10,000 years ago. And many of these were of like animals, if you could see. These are animals such as wild horses and aurochs. Aurochs is basically an older wild form of a cattle. Bison, woolly, rhinoceros, reindeer, and bear, painted in bright colors. If you could see, these are colorful paintings. So the and how they got the colors? They got these colors from minerals like iron ore, charcoal. So it is very much possible that these paintings were done on ceremonial occasions, or maybe it was a part of a special ritual that they used to perform before hunting or 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 finding their prey. So it is just all suggestion. It is not very clearly laid out fact that this must have been done because of this particular reason. Okay. Then again, a Neolithic site has been found in Turkey, and it is very famous Neolithic site called Khatal Hiyuk. And several things were brought from great distances. Uh, for example, flint was brought from Syria, cowries were brought from Red Sea, shells were brought from Mediterranean Sea, and they were all used in the settlement. And back then there were no cards, if you could see, because they are using these things from different places, Syria, Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and these people have no cards, no facilities, and most of these things would have been carried on the backs of pack animals such as cattle, or maybe people must have been carried all of them. So it is a thing to wonder, or to really ponder and think about. So in the entire chapter, there are some certain important dates that you need to remember. So when did our Mesolithic period started? Around 12,000 to 10,000 years ago. When did domestication started? Around this period only, 10,000 years ago. And the beginning of settlement at Mehergarh, the evidence has been found about 8,000 years ago. And Neolithic period started around 10,000 years ago. All right. Thank you. Signing. Bye bye.